Welcome everyone to your Tuesday night Dynasty Heat Seekers podcast live show. However you're listening to it, I'm your host Bryce Frazier, and I'm joined by the always reliable Anthony Leone. Leone, how are we doing this evening?
Doing well. Good to see you. Hope everything's going well with you and your family. Let's I guess we have some news and notes today, which is kind of cool. We actually have some real news.
Yeah, with training camp officially starting, we're going to get a lot of different news and notes. So we'll probably just touch on some of the major stuff, unless there's not much else to talk about. So the big thing we've talked about several, many weeks is Deshaun Watson's suspension finally came out, and I think it's best case scenario for fantasy owners. Only 6 games. And we're not going to really talk about what we think about it morally or anything like that. We're just going to talk about it in a fantasy aspect. And as someone that owns him in a couple of leagues, I think this is huge, right? Because if you can start out, 4-2, like if you can start on a winning record, you're in great shape. Even if you start out even or 2-4 at week 6 or at week 7, especially if you're in a super flex league, you are getting a huge asset back into your starting lineup. I mean, Deshaun Watson, before all this was going on, was a top, arguably a top 3 dynasty asset at quarterback. I don't think it was arguable at the time he was playing. He was a top 3 asset. A lot has changed since then. Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen now. So that's now it's debatable. But if he comes back into 90% of what he was, he's now in a much better situation with the team he's on. He's got, a little bit better of receiving core than he did previously. Amari Cooper, if he can stay healthy, is a very good wide receiver. It's just great news for if you own him in fantasy leagues. Leone, what are your thoughts on Deshaun Watson only seeing a 6-game suspension?
Well, I know you have him in a league, but you gotta slow down a little bit because it's not an official suspension yet. It's a recommended suspension based on the review process of the Players Association. So just the process, the NFL could appeal the decision. Now, I don't know if they will. I don't see any reason why they would, but they still can. So it could be longer than that. But if I had to guess, I would say that they will not appeal. He'll get 6 games. And if no new allegations emerge, then you're okay, fantasy-wise. But that's still a couple more hurdles we have to get through here. So
I think they're just hills at this point. I think I think they're going to go with the recommended. I think with him, threatening to sue, just because these were allegations and there was nothing that was proven, at least that we have been able to see, or at least that hasn't been brought out to the public. It's just
but there could be other things that we haven't seen yet. There could be new people coming forward that haven't come forward yet.
I think we would have seen that. I think we would have seen that by now.
I don't. And there could still be new cases going forward.
I think I think that would be all brought to light by now. I think that would.
No, I'm saying he could still be doing something tomorrow. I mean,
I doubt that. That's okay. That's possible, but I highly doubt it at this point.
Dude has a problem.
Yeah. Okay, I get that, but now the problem has been identified. He's going to be under a microscope. I think he might be a creep, but he's not an idiot. He's not an idiot at this point, so it's not gonna. I think
we'll see. But if what you're saying is true, and he's not an idiot, and he is gonna be on the straight and narrow, I think it's great news fantasy wise. I think if you have him, you're ecstatic. I had him in a league, and I traded him over a year ago. I traded away. I got Javonte Williams and Antonio Gibson for him. So I'm still happy with that trade that I did then. It was a super flex league, obviously. So, should I have kept on to him? I mean, maybe. I guess it's debatable. But, at this point, it's neither here nor there. If you have him, you're happy about it. And, I think he may start the season a little slow. but I don't think he's going to have a bad year. I think he'll have a better 23 year. And so, yeah, I think it's good news for fantasy aspirations for sure.
Yeah, we'll see. I just don't. I think the Facebook user, you have to tell me who it is like bringing up all these other situations. But Deshaun Watson just signed a $250 million contract. I think he'll stop doing what he's doing for all that money because he's gonna want that. He's gonna want that money, and he's rich and famous at this point.
Well, people do dumb things. I mean, look at Henry Ruggs. That wasn't. I mean, people.
But that was an accident. That's a little bit different. That was an accident. He didn't purposely.
It really wasn't an accident when you consider his blood alcohol level. But
I mean, it's still he didn't go out intentionally trying to kill somebody.
It was pretty reckless.
Well, it was reckless. It was reckless and stupid. But Deshaun Watson allegedly intentionally sexually harassed these women. Henry Ruggs didn't get in his car wanting to kill somebody. There's a huge difference there. You can't even compare the two incidents except on stupidity. That's about the only thing that's comparable there. Right? Intent is way can't be overlooked in situations like that. So we'll see. I mean I think that he's trying to get it all behind him at this point. We'll see. In other news, Tim Patrick carted off the field today. He it just not too long ago he did tear his ACL. So he's out for the season. I know a lot of people, I was unaware of how people thought about the wide receiver corps in Denver. I thought that it was pretty evident that Jerry Jeudy was going to be the guy, like the number one, and then it would go Sutton and Tim Patrick. But I have since learned that very few people still think it's Tim Patrick was going to be the guy. And then there's a decent amount of people, not majority, that think Cortland Sutton's immediately going to be the number one receiver. I think it's Jeudy by pretty easy, and we're going to notice it week one. So to me, this Tim Patrick news isn't really that relevant when it comes to fantasy because I didn't see him as a guy I'd feel comfortable plugging in my lineup weekly. Maybe on when bye weeks hit, it'd be someone I felt like okay about doing, but I think he's going to be he was going to be very inconsistent this upcoming season where I'd feel more comfortable plugging in Jeudy and Sutton. With Jeudy being the clear-cut number one. So what does this Tim Patrick news mean to you, Leone?
Well, I think, he was a worthy flex play on a weekly basis, especially with Russell Wilson there now. I think it's going to be a pretty nice offense. I think this, if anything, helps Albert O quite a bit. I mean, those are the three main pass catchers now. So, they have Hamler, I guess, but he's more of like a, stretch the field kind of a gimmicky kind of a guy. So I think it's going to be Sutton, Jeudy, and Albert O pretty frequent and often. So, I think it's good from a fantasy perspective if you have any of those three guys. I personally prefer Sutton over Jeudy, although it's so close. I wouldn't be upset if I had either one. So yeah, I think it's the biggest beneficiary is Alberto, and I don't think Sutton and Judy's roles are going to really be altered that much as a result of this. And then Hamler will have more playing time on the field, but yeah, I don't think you can start him on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I think I've been kind of keeping an eye on the Broncos training camp. I know it's early and stuff like that, but it's apparently from the news and notes I was reading of the Broncos training camp so far that it was pretty evident that Jeudy was kind of Russ's favorite target. Apparently, Patrick Surtain is a lockdown corner, and not many people are getting separation.
Yeah, he's been covering Sutton this whole time. That's
it said in the few times that he was covering Jeudy, Jeudy was able to make some plays, but they were hard. They weren't easy plays. Like they were contested catches and stuff like that. So it's just good to see that Patrick Surtain is probably going to be a really good corner in the NFL. And if Jeudy is able to at least get some work against somebody like that, it's only going to make him better against other people. I think he easily is going to be. I think I have a projection that he's going to be a top 10, top 12 dynasty wide receiver asset by the end of the season, rather easily. So we'll see. I'm
Bryce. I think they're looking for another person to contribute on the IDP show. If you're interested,
absolutely not. And then in other news, a little bit smaller, Irv Smith Jr. Had surgery. Apparently hurt his thumb yesterday and had surgery on it today. And they're not ruling him out for the opener. So that means that he is not getting any work in probably until, at best, a little bit before the season opener. So he's not getting, this guy's injury prone already. It seems like he was injured all last year, and now he's going to miss some valuable time in training camp, really, to kind of catch up with the offense, and a guy that a lot of people were excited about. Personally, I haven't really bought a bunch of. I thought he was ruled out for the opener. Oh, he might have been. I thought it says they weren't ruling him out for the opener. Rick is the one on Facebook.
I don't believe he's been ruled out.
I thought they said that he wasn't, but
that's I read it as if he was a question mark for week 1
right.
now,
which isn't good. Still isn't good. That means he's not getting work in anytime soon.
I mean, either way, it's kind of irrelevant. Like he may miss week 1, he may miss week 2. Either way, dynasty wise, it kind of sucks that he's hurt again. Like,
you probably didn't draft him as your number 1 tight end. You probably didn't draft him as your number 1 tight end. And ideally, unless you're really hurting at tight end, that he wasn't your number 1, unless you were buying him this offseason to be that person, taking a little bit of the gamble. So, yeah,
and if he can't play as much as we hope he would this year, I mean, I think that's a huge boost to Adam Thielen.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah. But otherwise, I mean, I think he'll probably be okay once the season kind of starts up again. But, yeah, it's kind of a buzzkill, He's one of those guys where you want to see them have like a huge training camp and preseason, like, oh, he's back, he's here. But it looks like we're just going to have to try to wait for the regular season now.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see what he could have maybe done in the preseason. You mean KJ Osborne? No. Oh, he says you're talking about it's a boost in KJ Osborne.
Oh, okay.
I guess.
No, I meant Thielen.
I think Adam Thielen. I think it makes Adam Thielen more valuable in the red zone.
Yeah. No, I think it's a boost to Thielen. I mean, Osborne obviously would get a little bit of a bump, but you're not going to be starting Osborne on a regular basis, unless you're, hoping for some crazy upside.
Right. I agree. So, Leone, I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce our topic for today, because this was your idea, and I know you're a little bit excited about it. So, why don't you go ahead and tell people what we're going to be talking about today, and go ahead and start with your first guy.
Yeah, so fantasy garbage. So, like, my favorite part of Dynasty in general is having a deep bench and stashing the guys that no one else wants. And a lot of guys have come from the, fantasy garbage heaps, like we were talking off stream about Darnell Mooney. I mean, here's a guy who basically no one was even talking about. And now he's a top 30 dynasty wide receiver. I guess we could look at the ADP. Let's see where our boy Mooney's at. I bet he's up there. Maybe not 30. Maybe he is 30.
Yeah, I think he's being extremely undervalued, this person.
Boom, 32. That was a pretty good guess. So, yeah, I mean, it's just an example. I mean, we could have been talking about Darnell Mooney a couple seasons ago on this stream. These are the type of guys who you have to look for, these gems hidden in the rough at the bottom of the garbage pile, because you have the roster space. Use your roster spots to their full potential every time. Don't just roster a second kicker, or, I'm in some leagues where you have like teams with like 3 defenses. Like, that is the wrong way to do these leagues. Shoot for upside. And we're going to be talking about a lot of good guys right now that I think are really solid plays in that aspect. And then also we have some other guys that, if you're looking for just like a flex starter, like, they're there. You can get these guys on the wire in a lot of dynasty leagues, or late in your startup drafts that kind of people are overlooking. And so it's just a lot of value late in the draft, especially on wide receivers. I think we're going to focus on wide receivers today. And maybe next week, if we can put together enough running backs and such, we can do that next week. But especially on wide receivers, there's so many good values out there. And it's just my favorite thing to talk about. It's my favorite thing to do. in all of my leagues.
I agree. So go ahead and talk about your first guy. For 1 second, though, Mike's in the chat. We answer questions at the very end, so stay tuned. It should only be about 30 minutes-ish, and then we'll start answering some questions. So put more in there if you have them. We'll get to them.
Please. Fill up the chat with questions. I love answering those as well.
All right, Leone, go ahead and start with your first guy.
So my first guy, it may come as a surprise to a lot of people, but I'm really high on Zay Jones this year, only because his price point is just so obtainable. Wide receiver 106. That's not like 106 overall. Wide receiver 106. I mean, we're talking back of the book, like right before you get to the index of rankings, you'll see Zay Jones. And I just think Jacksonville Jaguars, where he plays now, he's not on the Raiders any longer. It's going to be a much improved offense with ETN looking good. Trevor Lawrence should be better, especially now without Herbs there. Christian Kirk is there, and they have Marvin Jones still and Shenault, but if you really have faith in Marvin Jones and Laviska Shenault, why then would you bring in Zay Jones for a 3-year contract, $24 million? Granted, they overpaid Kirk's contract. They likely overpaid Zay Jones's contract. But even still, he's going to be a starting wide receiver on an improved offense, and he has upside. He showed it last season with the Raiders. He can make good plays. He outperformed Bryan Edwards last season. So I think the dude can ball. And so you get this nice upside on this up-and-coming offense, and he's basically free. And the best competition on his team, looking for targets on the starting roster, other than Christian Kirk, is Marvin Jones. I mean, sign me up. Wide receiver 106. I love the value. And I just think at the end of your bench, if you want to just shoot for some upside, I think Zay Jones really fits the bill. Bryce?
So to follow up on Zay Jones, I'm going to talk about one of the guys on my list. And he is ranked only 3 spots ahead of Zay Jones, and his name is Marvin Jones. So I think I'd rather have Marvin Jones over Zay. I do like Zay Jones. He's always shown those little flashes, even when he was in Buffalo, that he could maybe potentially be like a decent asset. But I think at this point, he had all the opportunity last season to be a guy that would be on the field more often, and he just wasn't. Whereas in Marvin Jones,
let's
been more consistent.
Let's table your Marvin Jones talk for your section, because I know you want to talk about him later.
We can talk about him as my first guy, honestly.
Okay, so why don't you do that then? Let's just segue into Marvin Jones.
That's what I'm saying. I
100% disagree with you here, so this is going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm basically we're comparing the two at this point because I have one on my list, you have the other, and they're ranked pretty much right next to each other when it comes down to these guys, right? They're both dart throws, but I'd rather have Marvin Jones. I think he's just been more productive throughout his career. I think the path of him being on the field in this new Jaguars offense he's going to be on the field more than Zay. I don't really think that's up for debate right now. I think that we're going to see it week 1. It's going to be Christian Kirk, Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault, and Zay Jones will get some time in there as well with certain packages or whatever. So give me the guy that's only 3 spots higher. So I guess I'm investing a little bit more capital.
Not really.
But not really. Yeah, for a guy that's going to be on the field who I think is going to be on the field significantly more. So that's just kind of my thing about it. When I'm going with guys at this level, especially veterans, both of these guys are veterans. If I'm going to take a dart throw, it's going to be on the guy who I think is on the field more, and not the guy that if one of these guys is a rookie, it'd be different because they'd have a higher potential of maybe breaking into being a Darnell Mooney, right? But these guys, we know they're not going to at this point in their career. So give me Marvin Jones Jr. He'll be on the field more.
Yeah, and I just think there's more upside with Zay Jones. I think he's a bigger playmaker. I think the offense is just dying for these big type of playmakers. Marvin Jones, I'm just not convinced he's going to be on the field as much, just given his age. I know he played he played last season, and I think he was healthy, more or less throughout the whole year. But with these older guys, they don't play as many downs, and I just think that I'd rather just shoot for the upside, shoot for the moon with one of these late
Marvin
picks.
Jones Jr. He can't be that old.
I would guess he is much older than Zay Jones.
Oh yeah, I guess he is significantly older. He's 32.
Yeah.
Zay Jones is 27. I think Marvin Jones Jr. was pretty beat up last year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he was, and that's why, and he's older, man. He's older. That's what happens when you get older. My knees hurt for no reason now. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I just think if you're going to shoot for the moon, given the contract they brought him in to play for,
but he still outproduced Zay Jones last year.
What's that?
He still outproduced Zay Jones last year.
Yeah, no, I'm aware.
Okay.
But, I just think that it has the potential to be a really good offense. A really good offense.
Rick, this is Rick, by the way. Did someone say Zay Jones is a bigger playmaker than another NFL player?
Rick,
alert.
Rick, you can go on to StreamYard's website and register your name. So then when you go on to the Facebook chat, your name will appear.
That's good to know, because I didn't know that either. Because I always watch this on Facebook as well. Okay, so I guess we talked about two of the guys. Talked about two of the guys on the list. You had Zay Jones. I had Marvin Jones Jr.
Give me the younger guy. Give me the younger guy.
That's fair. I respect that argument more than your other one. I'll take the guy that's on the field more. He said no. Go ahead and talk about your next guy then.
Sure. Let's move on down. Okay, so I have an older guy now. It is Jameson Crowder, wide receiver 87, new slot receiver in Buffalo. Look, even Manny Sanders, after an Achilles injury, was able to be used and be very successful in this offense. I expect Crowder to just be a steal at his current ADP. He's going to have really good, especially in PPR leagues. He's going to be right up there with Gabriel Davis, in my opinion. Gabriel Davis, yeah, he may get more touchdowns or he'll get more yards. But when you consider all these catches underneath that I expect Crowder to get, I think he'll be close to Gabriel Davis. And when you look at the difference in ADP, it's like insane that you're basically getting Crowder, like 50 spots wide receiver wise after Gabriel Davis. Let's see, Gabriel Davis is wide receiver 39. So yeah, almost about 50 spots. So I just think the value's there. Jameson Crowder isn't as old as a lot of people think he is. I checked before the stream. 29. I think a lot of people think Jameson Crowder is like in his 30s, like Marvin Jones, but
right, because he gets hurt like he's in his 30s.
It's 29. I think it's going to be arguably the best offense in the league, arguably. And I just think that Crowder's just in a really good spot in Buffalo.
Mike in the chat, Mike Ortiz, Jameson Crowder now plays for the Buffalo Bills. But your statement would be true nonetheless, even if he was with the Jets. He said he didn't believe Zach Wilson could support Jameson Crowder and Elijah Moore. And that's funny because he says that, and like a lot of people like haven't really paid attention that Jameson Crowder is on the Buffalo Bills now. Like I didn't even really realize it till later than most people. I knew it before the stream, obviously, before I saw your notes. But Rick makes a good point in the chat too, and we'll touch on it later because I know you have another guy for the Buffalo Bills on your list that does it. But I like Jameson Crowder because I did like him with the Jets. Like he had value when he was on the field, and I think he can have that similar value. I just worry that he's going to be like Cole Beasley, where he's just inconsistent, right? Like there'll be weeks where he has really good fantasy production and he's a huge asset to your team because you got him so late. And you plugged him in your last flex spot and he might be your weekly winner. But then I feel like there's other weeks where it's like you plug him in there because he's been good for 2 weeks and he puts up like a 2 or a 3-point bomb, and I could see that happening a lot, like where it's like 50-50.
Yeah, but where you're getting him at his ADP, it's not really going to kill you. I mean, you're getting him so late.
Right. So, but, so that's why I don't hate him. Like, I don't like it. I just wouldn't feel comfortable putting him in weekly lineups. And when I'm picking guys at this ADP, I'm more prone to, I feel like, take younger guys that I'd want on my roster that I feel like could be like that now, but then could be more consistent later on. I just chose Marvin Jones Jr. because I saw your Zay Jones one, so I thought it'd be a fun little back and forth debate we could have. But even him in the spot that he was, there's a lot of younger guys that I do have on my list that I would prefer.
I understand.
So, yeah, Crowder's a great pick for that ADP. He's a PPR machine when he is on the field, and he is better.
I think a lot of people don't realize that he's on the Buffalo Bills now.
Yeah,
I think he is better. Overlooked. I think he's just being overlooked. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, when he was on the Jets, you wouldn't have thought that he would be as productive as he was when he was on the field. And he was like a guy you're like, all right, Jameson Crowder's playing. I got to put him in my lineup. Yeah. Like, people probably don't even remember doing that, but that was the thing. So I'll go jump into my next guy. And this is an older player too, but I think this guy could have huge value for the first 6 weeks of the year. AJ Green, wide receiver 101. If I'm wanting to, if I'm taking some of these guys that are injured right now or even suspended, like if I'm drafting like a DeAndre Hopkins or Michael Gallup or guys that I don't think are going to play week 1, and I got to fill in my roster until those dudes come back to like really complete it. I think AJ Green is a good candidate for that, of a guy that you're filling up your bench, and this guy is here that you could potentially start week 1. AJ Green was his career was kind of rejuvenated when he went back to the Cardinals. He was a guy that produced really well when he was on the field. It's almost like he's suited to be the number 2 guy at this point in his career. So with DeAndre Hopkins out for the first 6 weeks due to suspension, and Hollywood Brown gets to step in there, AJ Green is still the number 2 guy, and I think that best suits him. Like, he is not supposed to be going up against the best corners at this point in his career. So I think he's a steal at this point in the draft, where you can get 6 weeks of value out of this. I believe he's probably over 30 years old, out of a 30-year-old receiver. So what are your thoughts on AJ Green at wide receiver 101? I think is what I said.
Yeah, 34 is just too old for me. I mean,
101.
He's 34 years old. I think he may be the oldest wide receiver in the league. Could be wrong on that. I don't think there's any 35-year-old wide receivers in the league. It's just, for me, it's just too old. I'd rather, and granted, you're taking a really late stab here, so it's not going to make or break your team. But I think if I'm going to make a late stab here, it's going to be for someone who I think could be in the league at least a couple seasons, who could maybe gain stock. Like you said earlier, take someone with a little bit more upside who can help you in the long run. Even if AJ Green helps you in the first 6 games, he's not going to help you win a championship because Hopkins will be back. There's just not enough. There's just not enough there for me to really take that stab. I'd rather take someone with just younger and more upside.
That's fair, but would you agree that you'd feel more comfortable plugging in AJ Green week 1 than you would Marvin Jones Jr. or Zay Jones?
Not really.
Really?
Not really. I think
it's easily AJ Green in that situation for me.
I don't think so.
Unless one of them popped off.
I think the chance of either of scoring more points is like 50-50 anyway. So I don't think that would really factor in for me.
That's fair. I don't. It's not a long-term value. It's a guy that I would take based on if I had some injuries or whatever the first few weeks, and I wanted a guy I felt somewhat comfortable plugging in my lineup for 4 weeks. Go ahead and go to your third guy.
I think it's funny you're like, oh yeah, I like younger guys, and your first 2 guys you picked were Marvin Jones and AJ Green. All right, my next guy.
I saved the best for last.
Oh, you saved the best for last. Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you did. I like your
Yeah.
guy. Okay. My guy is Terrace Marshall, Carolina Panthers, wide receiver 84. Now, a lot of people have already written this guy off. He's a second-year player. He was a rookie last year. He didn't do much last year. I think he caught like 17 balls or something like that. But he also didn't really have much at QB. Sam Darnold really did not do well last year. And in the games he did do well fantasy-wise, it was a lot of rushing touchdowns. It was a lot of stuff that, the receivers didn't really benefit from. So this year with Baker Mayfield in town, I just think that Marshall's in a much better position to contribute, make a name for himself, and he may have some really solid weeks. And, even if he's not a great asset in this season in 22, I think he arguably has the most long-term upside out of anyone we've already talked about. And at the price point of wide receiver 84, I just think he is incredibly affordable and worth the investment at this price point, because just a year ago, you had to take him probably wide receiver 60, if I just had to just kind of feel and kind of guess that. So now you get a huge discount on him, wide receiver 84, and he still has just as much upside as the year prior. So I think he's a good bet, and I think he has enough upside where it makes sense to get him on your teams.
Yeah, this is by far my favorite selection you have made, just based on all the points you just said. I mean, he was a rookie last year. I feel like a lot of people were probably drafting like in the second round of rookie drafts, maybe the third. He has a decent path to be the number 2 on his team if he, steps up and shows the ability. And he's just so young. So why not take a flyer on, and you're not spending hardly any draft capital on a young receiver that could potentially be a decent asset for the future and for many years. Like we've kind of mentioned some guys that are veterans that at best maybe have like three years more of production, where Terrace Marshall Jr., if, he pans out, could, potentially be like 6. So yeah, I like it. I think it's an easy smash when you have a young receiver that kind of dudded out his first season. He was on the field quite a bit and didn't produce, is why people were kind of fizzled out on him. Because I feel like hype was kind of high last year. Like he was like that steal in the rookie draft. A lot of people were projecting he'd be like kind of that steal, and he just wasn't, especially with how much he was on the field. But again, quarterback issue. The offense that team wasn't very good last year. So he has, this could be a good season for him, for you to get a great return on that value. So I agree.
And he's a player where, if you're in a league that doesn't have taxi squads and you have, limited bench spots, and, Terrace Marshall's just kind of sitting there on a team, he's one of ththose great, like, throw-in guys where, you do a trade and you try to get get him to throw on someone else, like Njoku or, someone like that. And he's the perfect type of throw-in guy, because he can really, he can really have a good season. It may not be 22, but he could really have a huge season in 23. So you want to be a little bit too early before you're too late.
I agree. So he was actually the first guy on my list, but I'll circle back to him because I want to get the old guys out of the way. This guy's been plagued by injury at the beginning of his career. And if you're, a Colts fan or have any Colts players and you're looking at training camp, apparently Paris Campbell is shining in training camp and already has a connection with Matt Ryan. So again, this is a guy I feel like people forgotten about him, right? Because he came out pretty hot out of college. I don't really remember where he was being valued in rookie drafts at the time when he came out of college, but he's only 25 years old. And, he's finally healthy. Hopefully he stays that way, knock on wood. But if he has a connection with a veteran guy like Matt Ryan and a really not deep wide receiver room, like it's obviously Michael Pittman Jr., right? He's a stud number 1 for them. And then T.Y. Hilton, Paris Campbell. I mean, they just drafted the guy from Cincinnati, Alec Pierce. Like, I think Paris Campbell has an easy route to be the number 2 guy on that team. There's just not much competition when it comes to the receiving core for the Indianapolis Colts. And Matt Ryan could use a speedy guy, through the middle of the field, short routes, things like that. And then Michael Pittman Jr. can be like how he used Julio Jones, more of a big bodied receiver, red zone threat. So Paris Campbell is a guy, younger guy, still could see value for 2, 3, 4 years that people have forgotten about. So we're reminding you, don't forget about Paris Campbell. What do you think about him at wide receiver 98?
Yeah, last year I wrote a Dynasty Hidden Gem article, and Paris Campbell was the first player that I wrote about on that series. I loved him then. I love him now for the exact same reason. He's actually, in my opinion, in an even better position this year than last year when I had wrote about him. I'm not sure if his ADP was better or worse then as it is now.
Probably pretty similar.
At where he is, I agree with you 100%. I think he has a very good chance to be a starting wide receiver on this team. The only issue I think you're going to run into if you're already in a league that's established is if he's on a team right now, they probably know he could rise in value pretty easily. But I think if you're doing a startup draft, especially, he's a guy that you could really draft at a really good bargain and should be someone that you should target in your leagues. I know we're going to have a lot of startup dynasty drafts in August. That's when a lot of them start. I think that's when they should start, personally. I'm all in favor of doing rookie drafts early, right after the NFL draft. But I like doing startup drafts as you would do any draft in late August. My own personal opinion on that, but I know a lot of dynasty leagues start up this time of the season. So Paris Campbell, I agree 100%. Someone to target in your leagues for sure.
All right. And go ahead and talk about your last guy. This is probably my second favorite pick by you.
Yeah, so my last guy is Isaiah Mckenzie. And I think he was brought up in the chat too, because right now it looks like he's playing behind my man, Jameson Crowder. But I really do like the value especially with his ADP. It's like 25 spots lower than Jameson Crowder. So obviously you're going to just kind of wait for him to either, come in after someone gets hurt. I don't think he's going to win the starting job over Jameson Crowder. And I think that's, you look at the history. I mean, this is the same team that threw out Emmanuel Sanders ahead of Gabriel Davis. So if they're going to throw out Emmanuel Sanders ahead of Gabriel Davis, why would they bring in Jameson Crowder to sit behind Isaiah Mckenzie? Like the logic doesn't really make sense in my mind. So that's kind of why I feel like it's Jameson Crowder's job to lose. I don't expect him to lose it unless he gets hurt or someone else on the team gets hurt. But Isaiah Mckenzie, while he may not have a great season this season, I think he could, next season be huge. I mean, he could be a top 60 wide receiver by next season, and I don't think anyone would really be too surprised if he has the opportunity to shine and he gets it. So this is another one of those guys. You want to be too early before you're too late. His value is at the perfect level. I mean, I saw him on waiver wires last week in a lot of my leagues. He's still out there. I was saying last week, hey, this is the time we got to make some moves now. Guys are going on PUP. Guys are going on IR. You can get some of these guys. Isaiah Mckenzie is a guy to add right now for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree 100%. Again, I've been trying to keep track of a lot of these teams' training camps, and Isaiah Mckenzie is apparently just making amazing plays every day. And coaches notice that stuff. And I believe Jameson Crowder is not even practicing right now. I think he's probably injured, like he seems like he is every year. I hate that, but I think you're right. It's his job to lose. I think Isaiah Mckenzie could, ball out all training camp, but as long as Jameson Crowder is healthy, I think he's still going to get that starting nod. He's going to have to get hurt or just play bad just to lose it. And he doesn't play bad. So
yeah,
But your point, the point I like the most is Isaiah McKenzie is 27 years old, so he's a veteran. He's been in the league a little bit, but I think next year could be the big year for value for him.
Yeah.
And you're getting him at like way less of a draft capital at this point, like where he's being drafted early, an early spot when you're filling your bench, to where now he's like a later spot filling your bench. So I agree. Isaiah McKenzie is a guy I'd be looking to grab and stash and hope. He only had one good game last year. It happened to be against New England, of course. Blew up. Absolutely is the reason they won that one game. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but he was the obvious best player on the field that day, making all the plays.
Yeah.
And if he can maybe do that on a more consistent basis, he could be the new slot guy for them. So, watch out. Jameson Crowder misses time every year. If Isaiah McKenzie steps in there and shines, that's when I think, especially on Sundays, then it'd be harder for the Bills to take that back away from them. So I agree. And my last spot is a double homer pick, right?
Yes, it is. It's a double homer.
I could not believe that he was this slow on the list. I was like, what? After this last season? This is kind of absurd. Kendrick Bourne, wide receiver 92. He finished last year. I think he and Jacoby Meyer were like neck and neck when it came to fantasy points last year. And Jacoby Meyer was a guy that people felt fairly comfortable putting in a flex spot last year. So if you felt comfortable with Jacoby Meyer in your flex, you definitely felt comfortable with Kendrick Bourne in your flex. And I think this year I feel more comfortable plugging Kendrick Bourne in my lineup than I do Jacoby Meyer. I think Javonte Parker is going to come in if he's healthy. Who knows? I think he's going to make a bigger impact than most people think he will. It's not going to be enough to be like, oh, Javonte Parker's awesome. But okay, he's all right. He's pretty good. They didn't pay much for him. He's producing more than he should have. But I think Kendrick Bourne stays on the field. Rick just made a comment. Parker and Thornton hurt Bourne. Bourne's going to be on the field more than Thornton for sure, unless Thornton somehow starts balling out. But from the reports I've read, he is struggling with physical corner. Malcolm Butler is keeping him in check, and Malcolm Butler just came out of retirement. Bourne exceeded all expectations last year, and New England doesn't care how much they pay whoever's out there making plays is who's going to be on the field. Kendrick Bourne was making plays last year. He's making plays this in the training camp. He's going to be on the field a lot more than I think Jacoby Meyer will be and Tyquan Thornton. So for a wide receiver 92, absolutely give me Kendrick Bourne. This is a guy I could plug in my lineup and feel pretty decent about it as a flex spot, as the last flex spot. I feel pretty good about it.
I feel okay about it. I think it's a good pick.
It's not ideal, right? It's not bad. It's not big. Yeah.
I think he's a great value. I do love the pick. You know who else? I know this isn't your guy, but Nelson Aguilera, I don't even see him on the sheet. Unless I'm missing something here. He's another guy too that people are just overlooking. The Patriots don't have a lot of elite pass casters. Let's be honest. They bring in Javonte Parker and they draft Thornton, but I agree 100% with you. I mean, I've always liked Bourne when he was here on the Niners, and he's a baller, man. He's a baller. He makes plays. He gets open. He's not the fastest guy. He's not the biggest, strongest guy, but he's smart, man. He knows how to make plays. So I agree with you 100%. Obviously you're not going to ever get, a number one wide receiver out of him or anything like that, but very respectable flex play. He might bum out, get you 5 points, but you know what? He also might get you 15, and most weeks he'll probably get you closer to 10.
Yeah.
So I think he's a great call. I think he's a great value, and I know all these people are naming all these other names out here, but I'd rather start Bourne this year.
Yeah. So Tyquan Thornton has that straight line speed, but we know that's overrated in the NFL, right? The reports I've been reading say his route running needs some work. He's rounding He's not creating separation on routes, is what I'm hearing so far. But he's getting better and better and better. But that doesn't change the fact that Bourne is just better at this value. Like Tyquan's ranked way higher than Bourne on this sheet. And I think Bourne has a bigger impact this season. Next year, it's going to be Tyquan Thornton. I think even later this season, it's going to probably be Tyquan Thornton. But give me Bourne and give me the value that he gets at the pick he is for as much as he is. You're looking at reports. I read every New England training camp report there is, Rick. There's no way you're going to read more than me. You're going to bet $50
he has a problem.
$50 that Tyquan. Man, I can't. I don't want to make that bet because I drafted Tyquan Thornton in every single league.
Well, then it's win-win. Then it's win-win.
Oh, I win that I got him in those leagues, but then I lose $50.
Yeah, that's win-win, baby.
I don't want to bet against a dude that I like so much. I think he's undervalued, but
we're not really betting against him. You're just betting another guy on the same team.
I think Tyquan needs some work. They have so Tyquan's issue, is and this is a guy I'm surprised was ranked higher because he was going late third, fourth round in rookie drafts. So you would think guys like that fall in that category would be on this list around these 100 spots. But I guess people would rather take the dart throws on the rookies.
No, this is what happens. They take the rookie and then they don't do anything. And then next year they're in this area.
But it's crazy that
Harris Marshall, like it happens every year.
I know, but it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy that, people are drafting running backs that are taken in the fourth round over, way earlier than wide receivers taken in the second, to me, like Tyquan Thornton was an early second round pick and Ken Walker was a fourth round pick, fifth, somewhere in there. And people are like, he's got to be the second overall pick. And, now I'd take Ken Walker over him, but it's just like, I don't know that I don't really see the logic behind, like, if teams are investing a second round pick on a guy, he's going to see the field where, a fourth round pick isn't nearly as big of an investment for a team.
I think
you can read all the reports. You can read all the reports you want. Malcolm Butler was locking him up early in camp. Like, and he wasn't, and Malcolm Butler wasn't locking up Kendrick Bourne or Javonte Parker. I'm just letting you know. I read them all.
The reason why teams will not take running backs early is just because they feel like they're all
dime a dozen. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, that's a good point. You could just avoid all the wide receivers for the Patriots. The offense apparently hasn't been looking very good. Like the defense has been kind of killing them in training camp so far.
I got this glare.
So we'll see. The only wide receiver for the Patriots I'm really investing in is Tyquan Thornton because he has by far the most upside, right? I mean, he's the youngest and the fastest. Like Kendrick Bourne's got good value for where he's falling in drafts. Javonte Parker's probably got good value for where he's falling in drafts. Jacoby Meyer, I think, is being drafted appropriately and ranked appropriately. The only person I'm really targeting on the Patriots offense that I feel comfortable putting in every week in my lineup is Hunter Henry. That's the only guy. Other than that, I don't really feel like anybody's going to put up like semi-consistent numbers.
Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're gonna get Rick going again.
Let's
go. I can't do it tonight. My eye is already red. My eye is already red from lack of sleep.
Let's try next week to do some running backs. It's really tough to find.
Oh yeah, geez.
Running back.
We're gonna talk about Zamir White again.
Let's go deeper than that. Let's try. We'll talk about it after the show real quick. But let's try.
All right, so we'll cut this short for those that are listening to this in a podcast later. If you've asked questions in the chat, stay in there. We'll answer them shortly. So for those that are listening to this later, thank you guys so much for listening. Next week we'll be Leone just alluded to it. We'll be talking about deep running back stashes.
Maybe
I'm not sure how exciting that'll be.
I'm telling you, I'm looking at this list right now.
Maybe we'll just talk about like two of them. And then maybe answer some questions in the chat. Maybe talk about.
Try. We'll see what we can. We'll see what we can find.
We'll figure something out. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Let's get to Mike's first question. And I was already looking at it, and the answer for me is pretty easily, but I'll let you read it and decide first. Would you rather take Javonte, Chubb, or Hall in a one running back 32-team league? And it is a PPR redraft. He did say that in a message right after.
32-team league. I don't even know what that means. Does that mean you have 31 other fantasy owners?
Well, that's obviously what that means.
32?
But is it split up? Is it split up into two, like,
that's what I'm
16
saying.
Teams? I guess
Like
that would be good. I mean, either way, does it really change your answer?
All right. You're right. It doesn't really make a difference. Would you take Javonte, Chubb, or Hall? Javonte.
Yeah,
I think there's just enough upside there. I mean, even especially in Dynasty, if it's Dynasty, it's easy Javonte. If it's redraft, I'm gonna go with the upside and choose Javonte. Chubb with Hunt. You know, you're not really sure how that's going to shake out. Breece Hall, rookie, maybe not going to be as good as Javonte. Similar as Javonte was last year. I'm going to go with the second-year player in Javonte.
I think it's Javonte Williams rather easily for me as well. Obviously, the Broncos now have huge touchdown. Their touchdown upside went way higher with Russell Wilson on the team now. I think it would be hard to choose between Chubb and Hall. I think in a redraft, I would prefer Chubb, though. I get scared when I'm investing such a high pick in a rookie running back. And sometimes it works out. When you get guys like Najee Harris, Zeke, and Barkley were all great picks. Like, even if you picked them in the first round, they're respected rookie year. But then there's a lot of guys that weren't very valuable, especially in redraft as a rookie. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Jonathan Taylor didn't really have a great rookie season for redraft leagues, but you probably weren't taking him in the first round anyway. But still, I'll take the guy that I'm way more confident produces in that, since it is a one year thing. And then Cordy had a question.
Also Anthony's back. One of our Anthony's is back.
Oh, yeah, that's Anthony number 3.
Anthony number 3. Welcome back, Anthony. Appreciate you.
I have Kyler, CMC, King Henry, Jimmy, Criminy, Justin Jefferson, Jamar, and Cup.
This is Matt's team, right?
Matt Brown. Yeah. Wowzers. Yeah, my thoughts are I don't even know what to. I mean, the thoughts are your team is stacked. I mean, it seems like a humble brag.
No, my thought is cheating is wrong, and
good Lord,
it's immoral, and you shouldn't be stealing money.
You just better hope your receiver. You better hope your running backs stay healthy. That's your big issue. Your running backs. I mean, even if they get hurt, you could probably trade one of your wide receivers for 2 sweet ones.
Yeah, it'd be really hard to mess this up. In fact, Cordy, if you lose this league, I want you to come back.
It's a 12-team league too.
Tell us how it happened, because it could happen, and I'd love to see you come back and show us that.
Mm-hmm. And you're Ethan Anthony number 3 asked. He asked how many people were in that league, and Cordy answered 12. But he said with Mac Jones not having a big arm might be the reason why people are not crazy about him. I mean, I say the same thing
about Bourne, or
yeah, I'm assuming,
Thornton.
or Thornton probably.
Thornton, yeah.
Thornton's speed is going to be beneficial in the NFL, but route running is just so much more important. Like, you're not just going to be able to outrun, unless you're in single man coverage. If there's any safety help over the top, your speed is not nearly as important. Like, you've seen, go look at the 40-yard dash times in the combine the last 10 years. There's only a couple of players that have been valuable, like not only valuable fantasy assets, but just valuable NFL players. So, I think speed is extremely overrated. I think Tyquan Thornton going to New England makes it more fun for me to play Madden more than anything. I want to see
I love that honest answer. That's awesome.
I want to see his route running improve more than anything, and it's getting better. But I know that in training camp, the only knock on him that you read is that his route running needs some work. He's making good contorted, contested catches, and that's fine and all. But you know, if you're going to be that type of receiver, you got to be doing that all the time. Where with that speed, you should be getting separation. So that's where that we need to see him improve, or that speed's worthless in a sense, right? So they got him working gunner as a gunner with oh my gosh, Matthew Slater. So they're trying to work on his physicality at the line of scrimmage with that to help create separation. So good to know. I think it's a and then Rick's just starting with me again. Steven is much better than Harris. It's just he gets on here. He gets on here in the chat to troll me. He's like Paul. You're my Paul. Correct. That's what you are, Rick. You're my Paul Veldboom or whatever his last name is.
No, he's your Newman. He's your Newman.
Ramondre is a more well-rounded. You know, I don't even have to explain it, but he's a more well-rounded running back where he's it's true.
Okay, who is the third string running back for the Patriots?
They don't have a true third stringer. It's going to be Damien Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, and then James White. I think it's going to be all equally. I bet James White is on the depth chart as the number 3, though.
All right, so James White. I wonder if he's even on our sheet. So
I don't listen. Damien Harris is by far the best runner on the team.
We can talk about James White next year.
Yeah.
All right, next week.
Damien Harris is the best runner on the team, the running back, and they're going to use him like they use LeGarrette Blount, where if they're inside the 10-yard line and they want a guy that who has the yes he is he actually watches New England every week and watches Damien Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. I watch him every week, Rick. It's like me trying to tell you Bears stuff. God, he's so frustrating. He does it on purpose. He's probably sitting there laughing in his stupid chair. The stupid Justin Fields stuff behind him. Stevenson is top 10 in efficiency last year. Okay, Tony Pollard was super efficient last year too. Doesn't make him better than Zeke. He's more efficient than Zeke. Doesn't make him better.
Have you guys already bet on Ramondre and Harris, by the way?
I'll bet on Ramondre and Harris. Let's bet $50 that Harris produces more fantasy points than Ramondre Stevenson. And I'm going to get on Excel and create a document after this. Come on, let's see it in the chat. $50. Harris, more fantasy points than Ramondre. I shall wait. There it is.
Oh,
there it is.
Smash accept. Look at that. Look one up.
I am $50 more richer.
Boom.
All right. You know, and if I'm wrong, I'm not even mad about it because Ramondre Stevenson is sweet for us then.
Win-win.
Because Damien Harris is good. Damien Harris is a good guy. He's just not a very good fantasy asset. So we'll see. You know, we won't see because I already know the answer. So Ramondre did come in lighter though, so hopefully it helps with some explosiveness because that's what he lacked last year. Was he wasn't explosive. This is so disrespectful, Rick. This right here, because you know who was buying Jacoby Meyer for $1 in startup dynasty drafts and was getting him for like 5th round picks and rookie drafts, and then the next year he starts doing well. Me, that's who, because I watched New England. Me, that's who was doing it. When James White was drafted, I said this dude is going to be I wouldn't hear because that was a while ago, but he was going to be a pivotal. It's fine. Jacoby scored 2 touchdowns. You still know he's a valuable fantasy asset, so I don't even have to explain. For $1 in startups, that was probably the biggest $1 steal out of all of the all things. When James White was drafted, I said he was going to be a huge asset to the team, and everyone thought I was crazy then. So it's whatever. We'll see. We'll see. I'll get my $50 bet. You know what? On our Sunday morning streams, we need our bets to roll at the bottom.
Is this a
our
points
yearly
per
bets.
game? How do you guys do these bets? Like points per game?
It'll just be at the end of the season.
Well, what if you guys? What
obviously,
if one of them gets hurt or something?
Well, we'll have a clause in there. They got to play 13 games.
Okay, all right.
Right? They got to play 13 games. I think that's what we did last year on something. So it'll be whoever scores the most points by the end of the year. If they play 13 games. So Damien Harris is going to be a touchdown monster in the red zone. That's just how it's going to be. He's going to get all his points there. And Ramondre is not going to be that valuable in the pass game because James White will be utilized more. And that's all I got to say about that. My Forrest Gump quote for the day. All right. I think that's it. We got no more questions. Rick, we'll see you next week then. He said he's going to jump in on us with us, Leone. And he'll put Ramondre Stevenson on his list of stashes to have, even though he's not going to be low enough. But
let's do it.
We'll talk about him. We'll surely talk about him. Again.
Let's do it.
I'm not gonna. Okay. James White's hurt, Rick. He's on the pup. No wonder. That's why Ramondre is running. Okay. See, he's reeling me in. He's reeling me in. James White is hurt. All right. We're done. See ya.